So if you haven't noticed yet, the new RX is also sporting the newest color, and that is the Incognito. You may have seen this in other videos like the recent IS video that we did, and the Incognito is a really unique color for the Lexus lineup because usually our colors have things like metallic and pearlescent and things like that, but the Incognito doesn't have any of that. Instead, it's like a flat yet glossy cement style gray that, in my opinion, has a really nice contrast with the color black. Speaking of black, having the Blackline Edition RX 500, we noticed a few things like a lip kit. Not just on the front, but actually all around the vehicle. There's some differences to this lip kit. And it's like a gloss black or like a piano black instead of one that has like texture or pearlescent or anything like that. And to me, it does really well with the other accents that the grille has. So being that it's the 500, we have this F-Sport style grille. We have some accents to the left and right of that grille. And then at the bottom, that new lip kit that I talked about with the Lexus emblem sort of smack dab in the middle. And of course, gray all around it. Now, I always like to point out if a color complements or hides the body lines. And surprisingly, even though there's no metallic in this paint, I can still see the body lines quite nicely. And after a little bit of thought and staring at it for a while, it's because it almost creates a little bit of a shadow look. So when you're not looking at the color directly, you have a little bit of shadow, and because of that, you can see those boisterous curves that the vehicle has. And usually you would need something metallic to be able to see that. So it is well done. Now, this is all good and dandy, but my favorite thing about the Blackline Edition is actually at the wheel. So with this package, we have a new 5-spoke gloss alloy wheel, and behind there we have what Lexus just says in the brochure, orange calipers. And I love it so much. This orange, especially being the fact that it's a big 6-piston brake on the RX 500, this orange reminds me of the RCF, the ISF, the GSF, all of those true F cars. And recently, the IS that I filmed on the channel that had the owner of it, Jovan, painted his brake calipers to be like this. And this one is coming right from the factory with that. And we can see there is the Lexus logo on it as well. I don't know why, but I needed to do like the sticker test to see, okay, Lexus, is that just a sticker on there? But no, it's actually in the paint, which is quite nice. And I also like that because of the calipers being orange, I do seem to pay more attention to them. The fact that there's like, you know, these little mechanical fasteners and things like that on there. I like the way that it looks against the black, and I really like the way when you zoom out and you can look at it with the Incognito, I like the contrast that that creates as well. Now, something about the RX 500H brakes that I should mention now that I've been acquainted with this vehicle for the last couple of years, since its launch in 2023, is these brakes are huge for this vehicle. Like, look at the size of that rotor, look at the size of that caliper. These brakes are meant to do some serious stopping power and also last. And because of that, don't forget, this is a hybrid, meaning we have something called regenerative braking. Meaning, when you're easy on the brakes, it's usually using more of a generator to slow down the vehicle and create electricity so that you can reuse that and get some power down. And because of that, these brakes are never working very hard. So it's important to note that if you are light on the brakes, you'll actually see more corrosion on these like actual surfaces of it than other vehicles because of you're not using the brake enough. So if you see that, don't panic. Maybe just find a safe place to like ride the brakes a little bit or press on the brakes a little bit harder because you're probably not actually using that surface area to the full extent. And that's important for all hybrids, but especially these RXs with that really beefy brake setup. Okay, speaking of more details, let's pop the hood and see what's underneath. And I'm just gonna go over a few important notes that, again, I think all owners should think about when they have the new RX. So, as I mentioned, this is the 500. So we have a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder engine, turboed, and also mated to a hybrid powertrain. Now, one of the things you won't see under this hood is a battery, meaning if you ever have to boost it, you will have to do an extra step. And what that is you'd have to pop up this little guy here. And in here we have a fuse box. In the fuse box, we have this little plus sign. It's like a little lever that opens up. And that's where you can set your booster cable for the power. Now, we're not gonna actually start the vehicle under the hood. We're gonna just hook up to there. and then take the ground and go all the way over to the other side of the engine where we see this big engine mount right here. And with that, we're actually going to power up the vehicle so that we can open the trunk and access the actual battery which is in the trunk, and that's where we're gonna boost start it. So don't boost it here to like start the car. You're gonna do that actually in the trunk. That's the better place to do it. Otherwise, there's not too much to see here. I mean, we can see all the cables and hoses and mechanical things, heat shield, stuff like that. There's also a fuse box over to the left. We have some coolant and some washer fluid, which is on this side. But pretty much, I always recommend taking it to your Lexus dealer for anything like that. I just like to point out the way to boost it, because sometimes with hybrid batteries especially, if the car isn't driven enough, it might die. And that's just from my own experience. Okay, let's talk about the side profile. And I know someone in the comments is gonna talk about my suit and how it's like flood pants, but this is one of my favorite suits. It was off the rack, Hugo Boss. It's like a traveler, so it's like a little bit durable, and I've just never gotten the pants taken care of. So that's why you'll see those sort of dangling there. Now, the first thing you're gonna notice when looking at the actual side profile, other than that brake setup that I mentioned earlier, is gonna be this lip kit. So the Blackline has an actual lip kit. This is like one of the first times we've seen that on the RX. I mean, you've seen it in past years, but not to this extent where it's like an actual different lip. It's also gloss black and ties in very well with things like the door handles. So the door handles have black on the tops and bottoms, and we also have a black mirror cap with a smoked out chrome sort of on the other side profile. In fact, with the rear tinted glass, if you're in an area that you can have tinted glass, I would also do the front, because I just think it looks really good with like the black contrast, and it gives you that gray and black look. Like it kind of gives you that like murdered out look, which I really like. One of the things is it does have the electronic door handles. One of my favorite door handles, if you haven't seen my other videos, I can't believe I just said that, one of my favorite door handles. One of my favorite features is what I should have said. So they are electronic, meaning you just apply a little bit of pressure and that opens up. And when you go to leave the vehicle, you sort of just apply pressure and in one motion conveniently step out of the vehicle. Now I bring this up because, as I mentioned, sometimes if a hybrid is sitting at the airport, let's say you go on vacation for a month and you come back and your car won't start because of the battery is dead, you're gonna wanna know how to get into it. So I have many videos about this. Essentially, you're just gonna pop off this little section here. This is like a little cap on the mechanical key. Pop that off, it comes out straight instead of backwards, so don't break it. I've broken many of them over the years. And then you're gonna put the key in there and you're gonna turn it twice to unlock it. And then you're gonna use this little lever here. So there's like a little lever that comes out and you're just gonna apply pressure. That will actually open up the vehicle if there's no power, and that's how you can get in. If you have to get out, there is, that same lever you go to get out, you just pry that open. It's really, really easy. And again, I only mention this because I care about our viewers and I wanna make sure everybody has a good experience with their car, because sometimes things happen and you wanna be prepared for them. And I'm trying to create a library of things to help people with. So if you like that, let me know in the comments. So when it comes to the body lines of the RX, we have a little bit of curves and a little bit of sharp lines. And like I said, with the Incognito, it doesn't totally wash them out, which is surprising because usually you need metallic to be able to accentuate those lines. We have one edge above the handle that sort of sweeps up, and then a little curvature towards the bottom with, a little bit more of a wide stance at this back rear quarter panel. I will say that I still think the silver probably accentuates it a little bit better. The white washes it out more, and the Incognito is sort of somewhere in between. Okay, so let's talk about the rear. And by the way, the taillight on the RX 500 and 350 and all of the variants of the new RX is one of my favorite. It's got that really nice sharp line that underlines LEXUS, which is our newest emblem. We also have the hidden wiper, which I think is always great. It's a great thing of the RX, and most of our other cars in the lineup don't have it tucked away. In fact, even the LX has it like exposed to the elements. You'll see RX 500H Direct 4. Now Direct 4 is the branding of our all-wheel drive system for this vehicle. And what that means is it's a very smart system, which could do 50-50 split. It could do, a 10-90 split in the front to back and vice versa. It's always thinking, and it can do like a true all-wheel drive, which is really nice to see. So that's the branding on that. The fact that this is the Blackline, one of the main differences, or one of the things you've probably already recognized, is this rear diffuser. This is totally unique to the Blackline edition. And there's not really any I use the term diffuser very loosely here, because there's not really any diffusion on the bottom. There's just sort of like some, not even vents, I'd say some decorations in the middle here. It's more just like a bumper or like a body kit, if anything. You will notice the exhaust is pretty hidden. In fact, you have to kind of get way down to be able to see it. That is because, and I've said this in other videos, so excuse me for repeating myself, it's sort of like future-proofing. So what we know is that there is a big chance that the world goes hybrid and EV, and because of that, having that exhaust pipe exposed and showing all those fossil fuels getting dumped out of it might become a thing of the past in automotive design language anyway. So we're starting to see them tuck in a little bit more. Taking a look in the trunk, obviously it opens very smoothly and very quickly. We have a full-size spare tire underneath the fake floor with a jack kit. The reason that's important is a few things. One, it means you don't have to run flat tires on the outside of this vehicle, meaning things like winter tires, or when you wear them out and you have to buy new ones. You know, it is slightly more expensive for run flats, even though I think they've gotten cheaper over the years, especially in this size. So you do have the full-size spare, which is nice. And also I wanted to point out where the battery is. So the actual car battery is right here, nicely placed, and this is where you're gonna boost it if you ever need to start it, okay? And any tow truck driver or service technician will know where that is anyway, but I always wanna sort of like point that out. Other than that, we have our decent sized trunk. You don't have to sacrifice trunk space really, even though it's a hybrid, because the hybrid batteries are actually under the seats. So back here, pretty wide, we got our meta kit. We have our books and manuals, which I don't know if anybody reads those anymore. It also comes with this handy dandy net, as well as a tonneau cover to be able to hide all your groceries. And also you can access things like power folding rear seats and things like that from the back. So inside the new 2025 RX 500h, it's that same interior we know and love with a few little tweaks. One of them in the Blackline edition is actually this gray stitching and what the brochure calls a gray perforation, which to me, I don't really see the gray perforation, but I definitely see the stitching on the steering wheel as well as sort of trimmed throughout the cabin. So that's a nice touch to pair with that incognito. And also I set up the ambient lighting to be almost like a gray. So we really have that gray and black theme going on here. And the interior of the RX already has that when you're in these sport packages. Things like the trim around the cup holders, the shifter, the vents, up on the dash. There's all these little black and gray accents. And that's always been a really nice, sporty, but not overpowering design language, I would say. And it does have a little bit of piano black as well. The steering wheel, lots of controls on here, as well as, you know what I noticed? Sometimes, depending on the car, the grip perforation on the steering wheel is different. And I don't know if everybody gets the chance to notice that. On this RX, the steering wheel is actually a little bit thin, which I kind of like. I actually get a better grip on that. And the perforation is a little bit more shallow, where some of them like the NXF Sport, it's like really big perforation, so that's interesting. This car does have the advanced touch for the steering. I've seen in my comments, people say they either love it or they hate it, but those who spend some time with it can usually figure it out. And what I mean by that is you can customize it to some different levels, some different pages, and be able to do what you want it to do, and it becomes pretty intuitive. And it almost just becomes like muscle memory once you set it up the way you set it up. You can see I'm looking at the heads-up display when I'm doing it because that's where you see it. And essentially you don't know what the button actually does by looking at it. You have to look up at that screen and it'll show you when you're kind of like hovering on it. And there is a mode you can put on that if you have gloves on, you can like still access it. However, who's wearing gloves when we have like a heated steering wheel like this anyway? Okay, behind that heated steering wheel, we have a driver monitoring system, which does a few things. One is it actually can help you set up the driver profiles, which I definitely recommend you doing. Because then when you get in, the car will say, hello, Dustin, or good morning, Dustin, or whoever your name is. That's always a good thing, but also it'll keep an eye on you for if you're distracted by the golden doodle that you see driving. And that's a true story. It's happened to me where I'm driving and I see a very cute golden doodle and I'm like, oh, that looks like my golden doodle. And the car says, please pay attention, Dustin, get your eyes on the road. We need to focus here. So I always wonder if in the future those types of technology will create, breaks on things like insurance, but who knows? I'm not one to tell. Also, a lot of times when you see a Lexus with one of those, it might have traffic jam assist, which is one of the most advanced safety features we have right now. Essentially, when you're going up to a traffic jam, you might get in a situation where, the car knows you're paying attention and it says, well, we're at slow speed stop and go traffic. You know what? As long as you keep your eyes on the road, you can let go of the steering wheel and you can let go of the pedals and the car will get you through that traffic jam. But if you start to fall asleep or read a book or not pay attention, the car might say, all right, Dustin, time to get back in control. So that's another cool feature. And now for the biggest difference across the lineup for the RX, and that is the multi-info display, the MID, if you will. So now we have it totally different than it was last year. And this is more what the setup that we see on the TX, which has been well received, to be honest. So you can customize it into a few different pages. There's 3 pages, all of them are customizable. The first one, I see some speed to the right, some eco info to the left, with some safety stuff in the middle. The second one, I'm more seeing like battery and eco stuff to the right. So you can see like an animation of the hybrid system working. We have an EV driving ratio, which is pretty cool. So that shows like how much of your driving is actually EV. And then the third one is sort of a combination of both, just like spread out differently. And that's the cool thing with hybrids is you can see different animations for how your driving is, whether you want to focus on sportiness and like power, or if you want to focus on like saving money, the car will give you scores on that and things like that. The actual screen itself. Now, here's an interesting take, and I don't know if everybody will agree with me on this. I like when a display is crisp but soft, if that makes sense. So when it's something that you have to look at all the time, I almost want it to be like an e-reader. You know what I mean? Where like, it doesn't like strain your eyes. If it was this big, like actual screen that I have here in the center, that's a really sharp, bright, Gorilla Glass type screen. Where this one, I want it just to be crisp, and I don't want it to be too bright. I don't want it to have too much info, and I don't want it to strain my eyes. And with this new style that we saw in the TX, that was something I really noticed with it, it wasn't straining to look at. It wasn't like I was looking at an iPad. It was more like I was just looking at a subtle display sort of thing. Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the interior here. So we have a little bit of phone storage with a wireless charger in there. I did notice it's pretty bright on this little shelf above that, which is nice because sometimes I throw my phone there. The thing about the RX with this big center console is that you have places to put things like your phone, which I'm always wearing a really tight suit and I don't know where to put it. That's where you put it. We got a couple USB-Cs. We have that cup holder that goes up and down, which I love, and also the armrest that you can open from either side. In the center here, we have the electronic parking brake, the brake hold, which is really important, and some of you have reminded me to make sure I talk about that. Multi-train select, and then our shifter, which is the electronic style. Other buttons, we have the auto park feature, or the intelligent park assist. Kind of fun feature. I have done other videos on it where you can press a little button and the car might park itself if you're in the right situation. Like having the doors closed, being in a parking lot where it can identify parking spaces, and then you sort of just let go of everything and the car does itself. It's gotten a lot quicker over the years. I don't know if you guys remember this. I remember like a Top Gear episode from years and years ago, like a 2005 LS, and they had the auto park feature and they like made fun of it because like it takes so long. But back in 2005, the technology just wasn't there. Fast forward to 2025, 20 years later, it's really gotten quick and makes it so that it's really smart. And I'll give you a little secret. A big part of this, and not everybody knows this, is these cars actually have AI machine learning. And what I mean by that is because of all the safety systems, these vehicles, all Lexus vehicles, have been learning how we drive as a species, as a Canadian species. And because of that, they can do things like more advanced autonomous style features. One of my favorite ones is actually on the last screen when you set up your car, and it's called Proactive Driving Assist. Make sure you turn it on. It's phenomenal because the car kind of anticipates what you want, what you're doing, what people around you are doing. It makes it so that even if I'm lost in like a daze for a couple quick seconds, I know the car is going to stop if the guy in front of me slows down. It's just one of those extra levels of safety. And that's the thing with Lexus is they inject these cars with safety without having to pay extra for it, which I always thought was really great. Other than that, we also have our Mark Levinson sound system. We have some custom things that we can see here, like the ambient lighting, etc., etc. We have bird's eye view. You can see some cool animations for different drive modes and things like that. I've done full videos on this whole system, so I won't get into it too much. But you can customize your drive modes a little bit, which is nice. Also, I should mention, the whole interior of the 500 is sort of like trimmed off with this material called Ultra Suede. It's kind of like a Alcantara, but synthetic. Holds up really well. You can see it on the headrest and the A-pillar here, as well as on the door panels. And it doesn't need like that attention that Alcantara needs, but it still has the same feel, which is pretty nice. So in the back of the RX, nothing has changed for 2025. However, my good buddy Andrew always tells me to film as if I've never done this video before, so that's what I'm gonna do. So the RX, tons of space back here. We still have some of the higher end upholsteries like that Ultra Suede, as well as, you know, things like the Mark Levinson branding. We have heated and cooled seats back here on this particular package, which is really nice, as well as some USB-Cs. I like having this little armrest down because you got a little bit of storage. You have a couple cup holders, and it just makes it a little bit more relaxed and comfortable. I was driving an RX for a lot of years, and now I'm driving an NX, or a lot of months I should say, because I'm always switching. And now my new demo is an NX, and I noticed that space between this seat and this seat has really shrunk when you go to the NX, and in the RX it's very, very spacious, and you have a lot of room back here. Also, I will say, a feature that I didn't realize so many of the competitors didn't have is the fact that these seats recline. And not just recline, they power recline. So I can actually lounge back here, and some of our biggest competitors don't do that, which I thought was really nice. So there you have it, our first 2025 RX. I'm sure there's gonna be many videos to come as we start to see more of these trickle in. And this is also the first RX 500h Blackline edition that I've had the chance to spend some time with. So let me know in the comments below if you would choose this spec, if you like those new additions like the brake caliper, like that black lip kit. To me, I look at this SUV as a way to stand out from the crowd, as well as have some fun. This is a high performance hybrid with lots of power, lots of driving features, and still some luxuries that you could use it for a commuter, you could use it with your family every day, and still sort of stand out a little bit from the pack.